You are listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer, presented by Richard A. Boxshall, in which I chronicle my life and attempts to become a professional writer by, doing some writing daily, hopefully. Hello, it's Wednesday the 12th of June and you are listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer. And what I'm going to talk about today is my progress on Empress of the Trees. So this podcast is actually being recorded as part of my live stream today, which I sometimes do and sometimes don't. I didn't yesterday. And what I've done today is edit chapter 28. Now, chapter 28 is an interesting one because, for a start, it's quite short. And also, it doesn't feature any of my primary characters. It appears to feature Marianne, but the reality is the reader knows they're safe in Forest Lodge. So we don't know quite who this person pretending to be Marianne is. But they are meeting with Duncan Ross and asking for the help that Carruthers has arranged for them. I've deliberately gendered the character in this chapter because it's kind of from Ross's point of view, and Ross doesn't get the whole non-binary thing. So because the chapter's from the point of view, the character is referred to as she rather than they. There are a couple of rudimentary attempts by Carruthers to use the correct pronouns, but it's quite clear that he really can't be bothered. So Duncan Ross has appeared before. He's a kind of minor character and he's got one more appearance, I think, in the next chapter, actually. Then I've also got, in the secondary chapter, it's really just Derek Cockrell-Wright sitting in his office and then the Prime Minister, who loses a vote of no confidence by the 1922 committee, leading to an inevitable general election. Now, again, this is an interesting character because I don't refer to the Prime Minister by name. I refer to her as female. So if we are assuming it's a real Prime Minister, then I think we can probably assume that it's meant to be Theresa May. It certainly isn't meant to be Liz Truss. She wasn't there long enough. This book is set over more than 6 weeks. But it's an interesting, how do you represent characters like that? And I think the best thing to do is not name them in this particular case. So the Prime Minister, in my head, it's Theresa May, but then obviously it can't really be Theresa May because, as you'll see in this chapter, she gets shot by the other recurring character, Woods, who we know is... we know he's Lord Farnborough's driver. We also know he is... if Farnborough is an Auror, then Woods is his Vero Andy, but we also know that he has more than one. You need to know the story to know what that means, and I can't be bothered to explain it all now. But yeah, it's a really interesting, it's a really nice little chapter where some important things happen, but without featuring any of the main characters. So what have I got to do now? So I've got another 5 or 6 chapters left to edit, including the chapter I've just read, which is about 4,000 words. There's a total of 40,000 words to do. And then we catch up with what I've written, because the point of this is I'm editing the chapters I've written to get them into a decent state before moving on to the final writing phase where I write the end of the story. Now, I do have a detailed chapter breakdown of what happens at the end, but I have got to change it. So there are a few things that don't make sense logically. One of the sad things I'm going to have to do is reduce, I suppose, the participation of one of the main characters, Mackenzie, because he's effectively been fed some information which is a lie, and if the trees follow the information, they will unwittingly destroy the mycelia and their attempt or their ability to act as a Gestalt entity and to be able to communicate with each other. So the problem is, as soon as Mackenzie, in the original draft, Mackenzie finds out that it's not true, but that makes no sense. He has to utterly believe it when he communicates it to the trees, because if he knows it's false, then they're going to not risk it. So what that basically means is that Mackenzie has very little time left as a participating character. I've already said that he is exceedingly unwell, or if I haven't, it's in one of the upcoming chapters very soon. The injury sustained by the apparatus that has been used to enable him to talk to the trees under Carl's control that apparatus is going to kill him within a few days. They've literally punched needles into his brain, so he is going to die. And the only way to survive it is to interface with a tree. But of course, they can't risk him interfacing with a tree because the information, he's unconscious. So they're unable to tell him and communicate with him, look, it's not true. What you've been given is false information, because if they can get that information to him, it's safe for him to interface, because the trees will know to ignore this information. But because he will not be in a conscious state to be able to tell that, then he literally can't interface with the tree, and it's the only way he can survive. I haven't written myself into a hole. I know exactly how that's going to resolve itself, but it's going to mean one of my other characters who thought they had a way to survive now doesn't, and I haven't decided exactly how Mr. Oakley is going to react to that. So I need to rewrite the final, or edit the final breakdown. We are in the end game, so the things have got to happen now is they've got to take the combat. So the good guys have got to take the compound that's got this tree that's been isolated from the network. Then Carl Tucker is going to win at a general election, and as a result of that, Barrera is going to be ordered to execute Ronnie. He doesn't like her anyway, so he decides to drag her into the woods and have his wicked way with her before he murders her. But luckily, our knight in shining armour, Adrian Vickers, follows him and stops it from happening. So you've then got the good guys, the Arbor, whatever they're called, in charge of the compound, which then comes under military attack, because that's what will happen when Carl Tucker takes over the government. He wants that compound back, and he wants to shut down the Arbor Institute. Is it called the Arbor Institute? Oh, Arbor Associates. Anyway, so the order in which things happen has got to be kind of settled. I'm not sure my plan that I've got at the moment is quite right, so I need to work on that. And then the ultimate end, I haven't decided exactly who's going to live and who's going to die yet. I know which characters are definitely going to survive. I know which characters look as though they're going to die and will survive. I know the only one really I have to make the decision on is Gordon Oakley, because my instinct, originally he was meant to survive, but my instinct now is that he's going to have to sacrifice himself to save everybody else, which I think is kind of fitting for the character, because he's this very dedicated eco activist, and everybody believes that he's just in it for the money, and actually that's not the case. And I think he's going to have to prove it with his life, prove to everybody else that there is more to him, and I think it is going to cost him his life. But that will enable Mackenzie to survive. Yep, so much going on. I know what's going to happen in the last chapter. Well, it's not really a last chapter, it's an epilogue. So despite the grimness of the story and 99.9% of the humanity being wiped out before the end of the book, those that do survive, there are some happy endings. There's at least one more death, but it's not necessarily a sad death, if that makes sense. And there is some happy endings for pairs of characters that it kind of looks like they might be romantically interested. I'm not really interested in telling a love story, but I don't mind cutting forward into the future until after the romance is over and they are together as a couple. So that's going to happen with one pair, and then I need to decide how to resolve the Marianne and Mackenzie storyline, which it's an interesting one, because I suppose it's a discussion about whether a man being attracted to, in this case, a non-binary person, but it's a non-binary person that looks more female even though they were born male, does that make the male that is attracted to this person gay? Now, I have an opinion. I think no, probably it doesn't. I think if someone's genuinely attracted to someone that they perceive as female, then that's not. But I also know an awful lot of other people would not agree with that point of view, and would probably question my sexuality for having that point of view. But do you know what? I don't give a shit. So yeah, it's when I originally started writing the story, that was absolutely not part of what was going on. Marianne was meant to be very much a tertiary character there to get me used to using they, them pronouns, and now they are not only a main character in the story, but absolutely one of my favourite characters. So I've got to give them some kind of positive resolution, and I've got to do the same with Mackenzie. So yeah, an awful lot still to do, an awful lot still to write, but I actually feel like I'm getting somewhere. So, that was 10 minutes. Sorry, that's longer than normal. I do apologise. I normally try and cap it off at 6, but I didn't manage to stop talking in time. Thank you for listening, and I'll be back at the same time tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye. You have been listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer, presented by Richard A. Boxall. Thank you for tuning in to my random ramblings, and if you'd like to know more about me or my projects, visit my Linktree at linktr.ee/Richard Wright, capital R, capital W. Thank you for listening.